Go. Take it.
All right, everybody. Today is Wednesday, August 9th, 2023, and you're listening to the Daily AI Show live. And I don't see anybody's faces, so maybe Jimmy. There you go. Hello, everybody.
There we go.
So today's Wednesday. Let's talk about AI. Now, anybody got something to jump off our call with?
Oh, yeah. So we're talking about prompt engineering
Okay.
today, about prompts, some of the basics behind that, I think, and definitely getting everybody's thoughts on or their experiences with prompts and prompt engineering. Does anybody want to take it off? They have any strong thoughts?
Do you want me to jump in because of the thing I posted?
Yeah,
Sure.
Definitely.
Okay, so I'm in a Facebook group with marketing people, and somebody posted a I don't know what you'd call it, a document, not a
Graphic?
document, like an image with some ideas on prompting for ChatGPT, which I really liked. I dropped it in the Slack group to everyone, and we said, let's talk about it. So the whole idea is, how do you get the best out of ChatGPT? Now, I will state up front that that's what I use, only because I can't get access to what's the one in the US that you guys get?
Claude.
I can't.
Claude.
Yeah.
Claude.
So this is ChatGPT for me. So the idea is, if you've ever played with ChatGPT, it's, people often sit it and go, oh, what do I do? What do I say? You type a few things away and you hopefully get something useful back. But typically, I think what a lot of people run across, and I've actually seen this live because my partner and her co-workers, who are not in the marketing space, they're in the disability services space, were talking about using it and really didn't understand it and didn't know how to get the best out of it. And I guess the thing that I think we've all learned over time is that ChatGPT works best when you have some kind of structure to it. I quite often will use it just to riff on things and come up with ideas, but then when you want something good out of it, you've really got to sort of structure the way you put your prompts in, I believe. And the one that was on this particular graphic that I grabbed was the Cisco prompt method, which stands for C
Can you
for
share your
context.
screen, maybe, in case people are watching?
Yeah, I might be able to do that. Hang on a sec.
I can try too if you can't get it.
Let me see if I can share screens. Hopefully I choose the right screen.
Welcome to day 3 of our live podcast, our live stream, everybody.
All right.
No,
Riff, people, riff.
We're a well-oiled machine.
Yeah, we're doing it on the fly. Can you guys see that?
I want to try to do it. I can find it. Goodness gracious. Window. It is going to be this one. I got it. Here we go.
Showing.
The Cisco prompting method. Context, intent, style, commands, outcome.
Here we go.
Yay.
Finally. So I don't know who created this, but I looked at it and I thought, yeah, I quite like it. It certainly follows a similar kind of process to what I use. And when you start to talk about prompting, you really want to start getting a little bit more specific about what you're asking the AI to do, because often if you just say, write me a blog post about traveling to Africa, for example. Well, okay, great. It'll write you a blog post about traveling to Africa, but could be anything. I mean, I've never been to Africa. So you don't know what you're going to get. So if you want a specific result, you got to prepare it. I heard someone say the other day, it's like hiring a VA or like a virtual assistant or a PA and giving them a job and saying, go and do this, but not giving them any instructions. And then they're looking at you with blank eyes going, what do I do? So with this kind of method or layout, and it's not the only one out there, but I think it's good, you start with the context. In this case, I think it's written for marketing purposes, but it doesn't matter what you're talking about, whether you're doing it for marketing or business or whatever, you kind of can follow the same content, the same layout. So context is, who are you? What are you focused on? What's important about this? And then from there, the intent is, in this case, we're asking it to write a social media post to inspire people to download a free report. You could be doing something totally different. Your style or your tone. I've had an example where I asked ChatGPT to write me a poem for the weirdest audience you could ever imagine, a group of former fighter pilots. And I know a lot of them in the US. And I asked them to write a poem about something. And I didn't tell them it was written by ChatGPT. I just posted it up there, and every single one of them, all these hardened, 60-plus-year-old, mostly conservative former fighter pilots, loved it. And I went, hey, I could never have written that. So, if you want a particular style, you've got to give it some instructions about that. And then your commands, do you have specific steps that they need to take? Because what you often have to do with tools like this is you've got to break the task down into smaller steps and guide it through the process. And I would suggest that you don't throw everything in one post as a rule. Typically, you'll do one post at a time, and you'll refine the post using this kind of method so that you continue to get better and better results. And then obviously you're getting an outcome. You tell it, what do you want? Do you want it text? Do you want it in a table? Do you want it in some kind of code format? There's all sorts of things. So I quite like that. What do you guys think? How many of you have used something like this? Do you do anything different? Have you had any experiences in this side of things?
I've been collecting. Go ahead, Jimmy.
I was just gonna say I do something like this or similar to this. The only piece I think might be missing from this overall method is the act as, where you are providing a little more context for how you want chat to act. So it gives it a little more focus on if the kind of responses that you're going to get. So if you want, if you're working on a business strategy, so you want ChatGPT to act as a strategist, things like that. But other than that, I think this is pretty informative.
What I like about this framework, Aaron, is that a lot of time when I'm writing prompts, I find that I'm doing this already in my head. Like, okay, I got to make sure I do this. Got to make sure I do. I'm already kind of going through that process of some kind of framework. But now, if I just looked at this, oh yeah, I forgot to do style. That this it's always helpful to have a framework to follow. I was going to show, and I'm sorry, Andy, if you want to jump in real quick while I'm doing this, but there's another one that I got from Christopher Penn at the recent Macon conference. And this is his version of it. It's called Race. And it's not showing yet, is it?
Not yet.
There it is. Okay. So it's a role, action, context, execute. Obviously, it's 4 steps as opposed to 5, and maybe doesn't capture the style, probably. But you can see how it does capture what Jimmy just said. You are an expert at this, and you basically act as, or you are, and then kind of gives you another type of framework. Again, I don't think there's a perfect one out there, but I love the idea of having one and not just going at it willy-nilly and just saying, like you said, write a blog post. Like, well, what kind of blog post? About chickens. What kind of chickens? I don't know. A turkey. I mean, I don't know about anything about chickens. Let's say dogs. If I write a blog post about dogs, and then what kind of dogs? Well, I don't know. Australian Shepherds. Okay, what about Australian Shepherds? How to train them to fetch. It's like, okay. And then so you slowly start realizing that your prompt can't just be something basic. So if you kind of have a framework, it really is a brilliant way to make sure you don't miss anything.
Yeah, I want to thread off of that, because this is the metaphor that just occurred to me when I listened to you guys talking, and the phrase act as and role implied that what you're really doing is directing an actor. And what you do when you're directing is you say, okay, here's your role, here's your motivation, here's how I want you to spin it. I want you to, and you can do this in ChatGPT or any of the large language models. You can say, in the voice of and with the expertise of Einstein, I want you to, and it already has a vast library of information in its stores in those parameters about how Einstein wrote, and you'll actually get a style that comes out like Einstein. So, and you can do even weirder things than that. So think of yourself as a director, and you're going to give specific instructions to the actor, which is ChatGPT in our example case here, and you will get results that follow those instructions quite precisely.
I think
Absolutely.
the beauty, I think the thing with this is, particularly for people that are new, and particularly if you're business leaders or you work in a company and this is all new to you, sometimes ChatGPT comes with this blank wall. What the hell do I do with that? And I think having some kind of framework to follow is a great place to get everyone on the same page so that you can start to experiment and learn how to get the best out of everything. So yeah, I think everyone should use something like this to get started.
I'll add another.
I'm gonna
Go ahead, Beth. I'm sorry. Go ahead.
I'm just gonna pop in and hype that we all met as part of the AI exchange. And I am in their first cohort of prompting class. Brian is the course lead, and they use a similar process that goes with the letters of master, and the A in master is act as, and also what was just sort of, I think Aaron hit this, that ideally you want to think of this as like a structure of chained prompts, so that if something isn't working, you know what's not working, as opposed to like there's a mega prompt philosophy that has everything put in, and that can be fine, except if you're not getting the results that you want, you don't know what it is that that you need to tweak.
Can you
If you go
explain how
back
you
and
would
break it down,
sequence?
that definitely makes a difference.
How do you sequence the chain? Like, do you have a part of the chain, you ask for the result of that, and then you say, now here's my second aspect of the prompt, and you follow on with an elaboration? Give us a case example of that.
Well, exactly, right? Because one of the nuances or like value adds of these kinds of chatbots is that the chat above it influences the chat below it. So you can string prompts together, just having a next prompt that goes underneath it, right? So I often, when I'm asking for like I want to ask it to be an expert in something that I'm not sure it knows, right? So, hey, I need your help. I always start with I need your help because I do. I need your help. You are an expert in a facilitation technique called liberating structures. Can you give me a summary of liberating structures so that I have a sense of where their knowledge is, right? Because that may not be something. And then,
That's a
okay,
good
now we're
idea,
in the
Dave.
context of that. Now I'm going to ask something specific.
I hadn't thought of that before, so that's a good idea.
I want to throw something in there that we may have not mentioned. I can share, but keep in mind that GPT-4 now has custom instructions, so we can preload it with one of the letters of whatever acronym you're using, and that kind of provides context to the prompt that you won't have to do every single time. So if your prompts are kind of in the same category, like they're all related to work or whatever, like for example, mine, I'll share with mine if anybody cares. Mine's pretty basic. It has two things. One, it has to do with my role, which is important because I want my prompts to just go ahead and just assume that about what we're trying to accomplish. Oh, you can't really see that. That's kind of hard. But
we can try
I'll
that.
read it to you. So
It's a little better.
I'm the chief AI officer for WSI. My core responsibilities are this, that, and the other, and I love to cook. So most of my prompts are either work related or recipes. So, and then it would like to, how would you like ChatGPT to respond? It's like I already gave it the act as kind of thing. So I want you to be a highly educated Harvard MBA, a highly sophisticated AI implementation architect. So I'm giving it like, don't be dumb with your responses. Be really technical and really intelligent sounding. I guess that's kind of, and we can change it later. I guess if that doesn't work, I can always say make the tone less so. Anyway.
Right.
I think one of my big drawbacks to that new feature, as I see it, is that they do not give you an easy toggle at the top of every new feed to turn it on and turn it off. And that's the one reason I haven't used it yet, because my use cases for ChatGPT, because I'm in consulting, obviously a lot of times it's for the consultant, of course, totally different voice paragraph, those kind of things, for their tone, style, all that. So I love the idea. But it's I would love to see it where it's much easier to turn on and turn off and toggle. And I think this sort of, goes towards the bigger idea that that's built in, and maybe that's where this is going. Maybe there'll be, for lack of better term, variables that you can plug in and out in these tools baked in. But it's also a great reason why people should start creating their own documentation. It can be on a Google Doc, it could be on spreadsheets, it could be in Notion, it can be wherever, Airtable, whatever the case is, probably not Airtable, but whatever you use to sort of house documents. It's a really, really great use case to start reusing variables, because, at the end of the day, AI should be making all our lives easier. But if all we're doing is going in and retyping and recreating the wheel every single time we go into ChatGPT or one of these products, that's probably not making our life as easy and as efficient as it should be. So I think there's a lot of things as people start to build out these prompts. And I came in late, obviously, to the conversation, but Beth was talking about breaking them down. And then Aaron, you had talked about the what is it called? The Cisco method, which I thought was really, really cool. Same idea. And Rachel just talked about this on her TikTok, like 2 days ago, yesterday, something like that. I'm not sure when it is, because sometimes you don't get them in order. But she was just talking about the idea of like, you're using ChatGPT wrong, you're wrong, I'm right type of thing. And I think that's dangerous, because there's many ways to use ChatGPT, but or Bard or Claude or whatever. But I think it's more about starting to think about, what is the topic? What is the task you're trying to achieve? Can you, or how would you break that task down into bite-sized pieces? How do you take each one of those bite-sized pieces and create that and turn that into a prompt? How do you chain those prompts together to create an automation? So that's sort of the thinking process.
Could you do that one more time? That was a really good kind of summary of step.
No, sorry, Robert, you've got to pay to take his course.
Hey, I got to be careful too. I'll find myself being sued by the team or something. I got to be careful. Giving away trade secrets in here. We both gotta be. We both signed confidentiality agreements. That's no joke. No, I think staying outside of the course, which by the way is amazing. I know I'm the course leader on it. I did not create the course. Rachel and the amazing team at the AI Exchange created the team. I'm just simply the course leader. But I will give lots of props to that course because it's amazing. But yes, Robert, to go back to what you're saying. Okay. Big problems. We start macro. What are the tasks that we're trying to ultimately achieve? What are we trying to automate, if we will? What are we trying to do with AI? And a lot of times it's easy for them to put in that the analogy of the intern, because I think it helps people conceptualize what is or is not possible. So you have an intern who's showing up at your office and you're like, great, I finally have help. I finally have this EA, or I have this intern. I'm finally going to get help. Okay, what do you need?
And run my business and make me rich.
Yeah. So now this intern is sitting there and saying, great, I'm here. I'm relatively intelligent, just out of college. I understand a lot, but I don't understand necessarily your needs. And so you say, okay, great. Well, maybe the task is be something super repetitive, like emails that need to go out to clients, or creating SOWs, or Robert, you've talked about that, about creating repetitive documentation with plug and play features for your clients. So maybe it's stuff like that. And so you're going to take a big goal, and then you're going to think, how can I break this down into bite-sized pieces? And then you look at each of those bite-sized pieces and you say, okay, what type of prompt could I create that would inevitably fix that bite-sized piece? Then I take all those prompts and I turn them into automations. So what ultimately at the end of the road, once you work through this whole process, what you're hoping for is something in a Make or a Zapier. It doesn't have to be or even in a ChatGPT, where it's using more of an auto mode to it, where it's running through the process itself to a certain point, where it's starting with one task and then building upon that and building upon that. That's the best use case. So that's also the best reason in my mind why prompts really should have a format, whether it's the format, the Cisco format, or more with like Beth is talking about, like we use in the AI Exchange, or probably 10 others that are equally as good. What's more important, I think, is that you use a method that you're comfortable with. The act as, what do you need to tell it? What are the instructions? What are the criteria? Things like this that it needs to understand. And the great part, I think Beth was saying it too, is what it does is it enables you to go back in and determine where things are broken and where things can be made better, because it's a constant process of
Brian,
repeating.
Where can people find this course at AI Exchange? Obviously, they have to be members of the AI Exchange, and how do they go about registering for the course?
Nope, you don't have to be a member of the AI Exchange. In fact, when you sign up for the course at the AIexchange.com, you also get access to the whole Slack community that we're all part of when we met in. As a part of that course. It's like an add-on to the course. And then if you happen to be part of the AI Exchange, then I think what they do, we've talked about this. Andy, you said like you get a bonus here, right? Beyond that. So you don't lose anything on the deal. And obviously that community, that Slack community, to all of us is near and dear to our hearts. Now it's enabled me to start actually, being a course leader as part of it. So I'm working with the team a little bit. And so I can't promote it enough. I think you guys feel the same way, but this course is really, really amazing. And anybody that's trying to get better at prompting, I would highly recommend this course. I would highly, highly recommend it. And of course, Beth is in it. She can talk more to it, but I would highly recommend it.
Yeah,
So
it's a lot about framing. It's a lot about how to approach this, right? Because when we talked about like, how would you explain it to an intern? Well, lucky for you, your intern is awake with you at 2 a.m. and does not need food, right? Like, and can do this thing in 90 seconds. Still bring interns in, everybody. Like, humans are important, but they're but the framework is also super helpful in this context. Yeah.
In the practice of using prompts, I think you'll find yourself seeing problems with the response that GPTs provide. And then what you can do is say, if I add this sentence to the prompt, then that'll fix that. So let's try that. I'll take that. I'll just copy that, paste it in, and add the sentence. And then I'm actually doing prompt engineering. And what you would eventually find is, okay, I got a really satisfactory response from that phrasing of the prompt. I'm going to save that prompt, and you're putting it then into what we call a prompt library. It can be as simple as a spreadsheet with your collection of prompts, but there are also tools now being offered that allow you to generate a prompt library and maintain it. And then that leads to, okay, I'm going to find some standard prompts where I'm going to make them programmable. And I'll give you a simple example of that. So remember you're directing the actor here. So you say, I want you to act as, and then you put in brackets, you say role. And then you just type the word role in the brackets. And then you say, you are an expert in brackets topic. Now you can finish your prompt. It's got these brackets in it that are replaceable by different versions of role and topic. And you copy and paste that into your prompt and into ChatGPT's query box. And then at the end of that prompt, you say role equals, and I used the example before, Einstein, and topic equals special theory of relativity. Okay. So then, but you can imagine that those are replaceable, and that it makes a single prompt that you've prepared and kept in your library reusable in a various number of ways.
Yeah. It's a good one. I've seen that. I've been taught that by a couple of other people, Andy, and I think it's once you find something that works, you can just repeat it. But I think as human beings, we tackle tasks without even realizing that we're breaking it down into small, discrete chunks and doing it, and we respond to results from up here, down here, and so forth. So I think with GPT, look, it's going to get smarter and better, and we won't have to get quite that sophisticated. But I think at the end of the day, we've got to slow down and say, okay, if I'm trying to achieve something, let's manually in my head at least break the task down and learn to slow down and do that. And if you do that, you soon find what works and you can reuse it more and more quickly, and it makes your life a lot easier. And when something doesn't work, I always take a step or two back and tweak it and say, okay, well, that didn't get the result I wanted. Let's make a small tweak and see if it's better. I mean, I noticed that particularly with doing art creation in Midjourney. You put a prompt in and it comes out and you go, oh, that was not what I was expecting. So you go back and change a few words, maybe move where they sit in there, and over time, by trial and error, in a sense, you find what works. And GPT, I think, is the same. After you use it for a little while, it becomes really second nature to do a lot of this stuff.
And I think along that same conversation, the trial and error piece, the playground is a really great resource for that. If you're looking to figure out how to use your API, you need to. You can't just do it in ChatGPT because that's a one trick pony. It's a chat interface. But what you do is you go into the playground and you can give it context. You can give it sample prompts. You can kind of trial and error the responses, and you can constantly update the context prompt, and that allows you to have more predictable results from your API usage, right? As opposed to, because all that trial and error you can do easily on the chat interface because you can see what went wrong and you can say, okay, change that. But when you're doing an API, I mean, you're screwed unless you can predict the proper outputs. And so that playground is crucial for that. If you haven't, there's nobody's played around with that.
And beyond that, there are a number of startups in the AI world that are building managers for prompt management. Like, it's a tool that lets you do A/B testing of prompts and to create that library for your prompts for the purpose of their exploitation in APIs and in applications. And I want to just throw in one tip for everyone here with respect to prompts, and that is the inclusion of the sentence, format this in Markdown so it's easier to read. Markdown, that word, once it's in the prompt, means that instead of just getting a string of letters that comes out, it's going to organize it with, paragraphs and headings and all that sort of thing. So try that, experiment with and without saying, format this in Markdown.
Yeah.
So I'm going to give one more tip.
We actually got a comment. Hi, Anne Murphy from LinkedIn. Just thought I'd say hi to you. Our first.
Hi, Anne.
Hey. I'm going to give one more tip. Once you've got your prompt working and you feel like, okay, I've got this, you can do a funky sequence of characters in your autocorrect and just type that. Right? And then it just populates. I do this with Midjourney a lot, actually, because I end my Midjourney prompts all with the same thing.
So you talking about like creating hotkeys? Is that what you mean, Beth?
Yeah, basically. So you were talking about, like, as a consultant, you have a variety of instructions you'd want to give based on who you're writing for. You can create hotkey, or like on the iOS devices, you can autocorrect. I also use Get Magical, which is kind of similar.
Yeah, that's a really, really good tip. I think that's really awesome because there's so many times where it's like the same paragraph over and over and over again. And you want to reuse that, or the variables and stuff like that. I think, I know we're sort of running up on time here. Just to sort of, we close out, if you guys had one tip, maybe we can, or whoever has, we don't have to go around the room, but if we had one tip for people to get better results today in ChatGPT, we've hit a couple of them. If you want to hit it again, that's fine. But whoever wants to jump in there, but let's see if we can just end with like 4 or 5 great tips that anybody could use today.
Already given.
I'll start off. The greatest tip is just part of the whole process, and we've talked about this a little bit before, is to go back to your prompt and do the engineering on it. I've gotten much better results down the entire thread, especially if it's a really long conversation. You run into memory issues and things like that, but just go back to a previous prompt as opposed to re-asking the question, or asking a question in a slightly different manner. I've gotten far better results using that.
That's a good point.
My tip is, don't be afraid to experiment and make mistakes. This is not life or death. It's not going to sick the Terminator onto you and kill you. So muck around, screw it up, play around with it, and you will find I continue to be surprised at some of the cool things that ChatGPT comes up with when I'm just mucking around. So don't be afraid to play. Be a bit childlike if you want. Just play until we find something that you like.
Love it.
I'll jump in and say, follow a framework. Whatever you decide to do, the AI Institute's Market Master
Master.
whether it be Master or Cisco or Race, figure out some prompt framework to follow so that you don't miss out on something. And then of course, like everybody's been saying, go back and tweak it. This is conversational AI. The whole point is it's not going to get it right the first run. You have a conversation, you figure it out, and you bounce it back and forth, and you tell it, no, you're an idiot. Fix that. Or it is very nice. We can be really mean to these guys now, but they don't rule the world. And of course, I anthropomorphize them as a male. I don't know why. Maybe I expect it to be a bad guy in the future. Yeah, Terminator. Anyway, next.
Okay, my tip: use ChatGPT to make your prompt. You ask it to act as a prompt engineer who's expert in writing prompts. And then you explain in natural language what you want your prompt to do. That will result in a prompt that is much better than you might type yourself.
There's also Prompt Perfect for that, right? That's one of the plugins. Right. So if you have access to ChatGPT 4, if you're on the Plus.
All right, who's left? I'm on tip 5. Who's left?
You.
Oh, it's me. Okay, well, I can't do a banner. Who's gonna do the banner? Because I can't do the banner and talk at the same time. Yeah, what is my tip? I've been focusing on getting the banners right. This is high level stuff, to get the banners up on the screen. Yeah, I think you guys have kind of nailed all the things. Oh, I do have one. Be specific and always go back to that idea of how would you explain this to maybe a child or a young adult. And the reason I mentioned that is way back, the first job I ever had was being a karate instructor. And so the whole joke was you would say, I was being taught at like 13 how to be a karate instructor, and I was leading classes with little kids. And we'd say, keep your hands up. And inevitably, I mean, not because they were joking around, kids would go, and you'd say, no, keep your hands here, right? I know what I mean. The 5-year-old goes, whatever you want. Hands are up. Got it. Also, there's a big difference between try to keep your hands up and don't drop your hands. One of them is positive and the other one is negative. And children pick up on that. Guess what? So does ChatGPT. Be positive. That's an extra tip. They go hand in hand, right? Be specific and be positive with what you're trying to get out of it. And I have found, at least for me in my testing, that I get better results when I'm talking in the positive as opposed to something negative happen, as opposed to don't drop your hands, try to keep your hands up. But more specifically, try to keep your hands up near your chin. There's a big difference between that.
Good point. Good 6 tips, guys. I think we should end on that note and definitely put that in the show notes. That's very helpful to people.
Awesome. Well, very good. Sorry I had to pop up. Thank you for whoever jumped in at the beginning. My daughter literally fell down the stairs right at the front of this. She's okay, thank God. But I literally heard her fall down my stairs, scared the you-know-what out of me. So everybody's all right. But thank you guys for jumping in at the very beginning there, because it was right as we went live. So awesome. We'll be back tomorrow, guys, to do it again. This was a lot of fun, as always. Come, Beth, go tell them what we need to do.
Please go to the Daily AI Show at LinkedIn. No spaces, no dashes, just the Daily AI Show. Like the page. And if we hit 150, we'll stream from there.
Perfect. Love it. All right, guys. See you tomorrow.
Bye.